Good afternoon and welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, January 29th, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. Councillor Chapman will not be in attendance at today's meeting as he is not feeling well. The first item on the agenda is land acknowledgement under agenda item 1.1. The town of Coaldale acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot peoples of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot peoples past, present, and future while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The town of Coaldale is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Next item on the agenda under agenda item 1.2, conflict of interest declaration, pecuniary and non-pecuniary. Are there any in the room this afternoon? None declared, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2.1, the acceptance of the agenda for our regular council meeting for January 29th, 2024. Are there any additions or omissions to the agenda? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council adopt the regular council meeting agenda for January 29th, 2024 as presented? Councillor Pickering makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3.1 under adoption of the previous minutes. We have the regular council meeting minutes from January the 8th, 2024. Were there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council adopt the regular council meeting minutes from January 8th, 2023 as presented? Councillor Reeves makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3.2, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from January 23rd, 2024. Were there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council adopt the Committee of the Whole minutes from January 23rd, 2024 as presented? Deputy Mayor Saylor makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item that we have coming up under agenda item 4.1, delegation by appointment. From STARS this afternoon, we have the Municipal Relations Liaison for Southern Alberta, Jackie Seeley, presenting. So Jackie, welcome. Appreciate your coming out to give us an update on what's happening with STARS whenever you're ready. I understand you have a PowerPoint presentation as well. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Jackie Seeley. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Southern Alberta in the small town of Bassano, where I was in nonprofit management for quite some time and also served on our municipal council. So it's a pleasure to be here with STARS and share about this essential service for your community. So critical care anywhere. What does that mean for STARS? As you can see, we have done some rebranding. You can see that little wave in our logo, and that represents a heartbeat. STARS celebrated 38 years of serving Albertans on December 1st of last year. And from our beginning, we started with one helicopter. Now we are a fleet of 10 helicopters that are basically airborne intensive care unit environments. So we felt it was the perfect time to do a rebranding and to reflect that critical care kind of in the heartbeat that's added to our STARS logo. STARS is fueled by generosity. Previously, STARS had a 10-year affiliation agreement with Alberta Health Services for 20% government funding. This agreement expired in 2020 and has been on a year-to-year basis since then. In 2022, they announced that they would consider top-up funding to 50%. And we're happy to report that at the end of 22, we did receive top-up funding, with the total funding from Alberta Health Services being $15 million. With 3 bases in Alberta, it costs $10 million per base to operate. This $15 million does not include the cost of our Emergency Link Center, which is our dispatch center, does not include education and training, and does not include administrative costs. We're in high-level discussions with Alberta Health Services and hope to secure another 10-year affiliation agreement with them. So where does the rest of our fundraising come from? There's another $27.8 million to fundraise. $10 million of that comes from the STARS lottery that was launched on January 18th of last month, or of this month still. So this STARS lottery has been going for decades now. And so with $10 million coming from that lottery, that funds 1 base in Alberta. And if you go online, you'll see there's over $4.8 million in prizes this year. The rest of the fundraising, so that leaves another $18 million, and that comes from events that happen province-wide. I'd like to note the Real Estate Center Gala that happens here. That's actually happening right here in Coaldale on February 9th, and we've had that event for a few years now, so we greatly appreciate that support. More support comes from corporate donors, businesses, and individual donors. There's also $2 million of that comes from our municipal program that is being supported by 90% of municipalities across the province. Here we have a map of Alberta and northeastern BC. Municipalities see STARS as an essential service. This year, we are happy to welcome 5 more rural municipalities and 6 urban municipalities, with 3 that are pending that are left here on the map shown in white. So all of the yellow boxes that you see across the map are regional partnerships that we are growing across the province. So this is where the towns and villages, in partnership with their county, are all coming together to support STARS. We have 9 municipal leaders that are featured with their logo on our helicopter. They have STARS as a standing motion in their annual budget and recognize us as part of their protective service budget. And these are at a much larger rate of support. So this united effort across the province from municipalities is ensuring a robust health and safety network for all of us. Let's take a look at the 5-year mission overview within the Lethbridge County up to December 30th of last year. So in total, you can see there are 360 missions flown last year within the Lethbridge County. So on average, 1 per week or more, because we've had 72 missions per year as an average over the 5 years. You can see that we also had, like the Lethbridge Hospital is a very busy hospital with 344 critical interfacility transfers. It's important to understand what these critical interfacility transfers are. So this is when a rural scene incident occurs, the individual is picked up by ground ambulance and taken to the hospital. And if that is deemed critical, then STARS is called. So that's where the interfacility transfer happens. You will also see that near Coaldale, over the 5 years, you had 2 scene calls. And this is where the call has been deemed critical right off the start. And STARS has come out and landed either on the highway or in a field somewhere around here. And thankfully to your fire department, they assist us in landing as well. So we greatly appreciate the work they do within the chain of survival. Next, we're taking a look at the Postal Code Project, and you're probably wondering, what is this? So this was 10 years in the making, utilizing patient postal code data only. we were able to pinpoint where each resident that was flown by STARS lived at the time they were flown by STARS. So in total, dating back to 2010, there was 554 residents flown. 57 of those were from Coaldale. Now, more interestingly, we're taking a look at all of the red dots on the map. This indicates where the resident was located at the time they were flown by STARS. So they could have been traveling for work, to see family, or they could have been on vacation. So of the 554 total residents flown since 2010, 57 were Coaldale residents. These residents were all served by 5 STARS bases across 3 provinces. 459 were picked up within Lethbridge County, and 95 residents were picked up in 52 other municipalities. So this is testament that your residents have access to STARS across the Western Canada provinces. The Emergency Link Center is located at our Calgary base, and they receive over 36,000 emergency requests per year. So on average, 100 per day. The Emergency Link Center works closely with 911 dispatch and has access to every available resource across the province. The STARS Vigilant program monitors over 4,000 registered sites, including industry. Sometimes people register events, and also farmers and ranchers will register their ranch as a site. So when an incident occurs, it's the Emergency Link Center that will link together all resources on one call, saving precious time. STARS provides critical care physically and virtually, and producing many more positive results. So the STARS transport physician is taking a shift in the Emergency Link Center here in this photo, and provides medical and procedural guidance on every critical call. So regardless of the mode of transport. So this is by ground ambulance and also by Alberta Health Services fixed wing. A STARS crew member also in turn may accompany a patient by ground ambulance or Alberta Health Services fixed wing. But it's a STARS transport physician that will also provide or make all the logistical arrangements with the receiving doctors at the receiving hospitals, so that while that patient is being transported, everything can be scheduled, like cardiac cath lab, a neurosurgeon, or a CAT scan for a possible stroke patient. The STARS transport physician will also provides virtual care and over-the-phone care to your rural medical professionals at your smaller hospitals. The H145 fleet is, as I said, a generational investment. So all bases are H145 operational now. We're able to sell off the remainder of the BK117 fleet to complete this capital campaign. So we're very proud to say that all 10 helicopters are completely paid for. STARS also celebrated 20 years of having night vision goggle capability last year. We're the first civilian organization in Canada to be able to fly at night, which is essential because more than 50% of our calls are occurring at night. The H145 is an airborne intensive care unit environment. This picture says it all. Starting with the handheld iStat lab, with 2 drops of blood, and within less than 2 minutes, we can have test results for hemoglobin, blood gases, and electrolytes. This is vital for our crew members to have when managing multiple pain management drugs in a severe trauma patient. Also on board, we have a lot of other equipment, like the Hamilton T1 ventilator. It's fully featured, just like the ones you would see in the tertiary care centers. This one is equipped for adult, pediatric, and neonatal. We also carry universal blood on board. We were the first helicopter EMS program to carry blood on board. We increased to 4 units in 2019 due to the increased demand. We are also part of a new innovation, the new blood plan. It's a Canadian first, factor blood protocol that was just started in October of 2023. The video laryngoscope also allows crew members to navigate difficult airways. This is especially important for trauma patients, burn victims, or somebody who has been crushed on impact. The Easy IO drill is only used in time-sensitive, life-threatening situations where we need to have instantaneous IV access to begin stabilization and pain management in a patient. The handheld ultrasound also produces quick results, rapid diagnosis of collapsed lungs, trauma-related internal bleeding, heart abnormalities, and even fetal compromise. So now the way that the helicopters are Bluetooth, integrated Wi-Fi, and satellite connected, we're able to send those results. The STARS transport physician, I should say, can send those results in real time to the receiving doctors at the receiving hospital, so that always the patient is number one, and we are saving as much time as possible, as every second counts. There's also extensive pain management drugs on board, like thrombolytics. These are used in the event of a stroke or query stroke patient. So it is essential that every stroke patient have a CAT scan to determine the type of stroke that it is and whether it is the type that warrants the thrombolytic drugs. So STARS was born out of necessity. Our first mission was flown right down here in southern Alberta for a critically ill newborn, Kelly Waldron. Who knew how radically critical care would change in Alberta? Today, STARS has flown more than 55,000 missions since our inception in 1985, and at no cost to the patient. A life is saved every day, and it is partnership that makes it possible. STARS was built by community, for community. So we're asking Council for your kind consideration in becoming a partner with STARS on this life-saving mission. Our request is for $1 per capita for your 2024 and 2025 term in conjunction with your council term. And we sincerely would appreciate the opportunity to partner with you and to bring you your annual updates and to have you on this mission with us.
Thank you, Jackie. I'll open it up to members of council for any questions, comments for our presenter. Councillor Reeves, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, through the speaker. So the February 9th gala, that's here in Coaldale, where is it located?
You know, I would have to look in my phone to find the exact location. I can forward that information to your administration,
That
though.
would be great, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Avery has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple questions, and they're more to do with the province. So the province is trying to link all of the pre-hospital care together, EMS dispatch. Why is STARS still dispatching their own? And why is the province not footing the bill as they are with ground ambulance and other inter-hospital transfers? Because we're a council that was working with the province trying to get our EMS contract back. I think we've been told fairly clear that that's going to be a no. So why is STARS still fundraising for money? It seems very 1985-ish.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, we had the 20% funding before, and that was bumped up to 50% in 2022. And so we are very thankful for the support that we have. STARS is as appointed by the government of Alberta, the dedicated critical care provider. So as soon as a call becomes critical, we're involved. That's basically from our end all I can speak to.
Thank you. Any further questions for our presenter? I just have a question regarding STARS and HALO. Where do you overlap in southern Alberta? or where's the cutoff?
Okay, so at STARS we say no matter where you are, no matter who you are, it's never too far. So while there's kind of a radius, it is, we don't ask where you need us to go, we ask how far you need us to go. So essentially, like, we can land anywhere down in that southeast area, but the important thing to remember, well, let me kind of start this way, is so we're the appointed critical care provider for Alberta. We work in partnership with HALO. We dispatch HALO as well and provide, the STARS transport physician provides medical and procedural guidance to HALO as well. So we are in partnership with this. So the number one thing is the amount of time it takes to get to the patient. So if there's somebody south of Medicine Hat or east of Tabor, we want to get that individual into the hospital, into a hospital setting as fast as possible. So it is possible that HALO is dispatched to pick up that person and take them to the hospital. Well, at the same time, STARS may rendezvous to pick that patient up and take them to tertiary care in Calgary. So we do work together. And to answer your question a little more specifically about how far we can go, it is like, if it's quicker for that patient to get them to the hospital here, that is what we're going to do first, is get them into a hospital setting. If we needed to go further, we can go further. We can fly a lot, like on a full, if we knew the mission was further southeast of Tabor, then we would ensure when we left the base in Calgary that we had full tank of fuel rather than what our regular call volume would be. So number one, getting the patient to a hospital. And if it's faster to do it that way, then that's how we would do it. We also have fuel caches in different locations. So Lethbridge and Medicine Hat. If we needed to refuel to go further, we certainly can.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions, comments? Just on a personal note for our municipal clerk, her cousin's wife, Carla Minogue, she's on, if you look on your STARS presentation, she's on slide 14 of 25. She is a survivor thanks to STARS, so we wanted to mention that.
Yes.
So again, last chance, questions, comments? I'm not seeing any, so thank you very much for your presentation. It was very well done. And with that being said, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive the STARS delegation as information? Councillor Beekman makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Jackie.
Thank you, and we look forward to hearing back from you, and we do hope that we were timely in your budget considerations, deliberations.
Thank you.
I'm also leaving a couple of the Horizons magazines with you that has Carla's story in it, and also a couple of our new calendars. If you would like to pass one on to your fire department, as well as a newsletter, we would appreciate that. We sincerely appreciate all the work that the fire department does to help us land.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business, agenda item 8.1. We have our municipal clerk, Lana Antony, presenting on agenda item 8.1, Proclamation for Kin Canada Week, February 18th to 24th. Lana, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and members of Council. I'm here to present today on behalf of the Kinsmen Club of Coaldale, presented a request to Council to request a proclamation for Kin Canada Week, which is defined as February 18 to 24 of 2024. The proclamation was included in the agenda package. I have it up on the screen there. There was a previous request from the kinsmen to do a flag raising in celebration of that week. So that was approved by the flag raising committee, and council has agreed to raise the flag. Due that it falls on a weekend, the flag will be rose up at the end of day on the Friday and rose back up on the Monday to celebrate that week. So I have I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have in regard to that.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council for any questions, comments. Just full disclosure, I am a member of the Kinsman Club of Coaldale. Councillor Reeves has a question.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, and through to Lana. At our first committee of the whole meeting, I was under the impression that a proclamation request would fall under a flag request. So I thought we were going to have an email so we could learn about it or read about it, get some more information on it. How did this, can I just look for some clarification on that, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Through to Councillor Reese. The flag request was presented to council, and it was approved at a previous, prior to the committee of the whole coming to have all of this process. And we don't always receive proclamation requests along with a flag request, so they would probably be treated separately, like coming forward, because honestly, like we have not seen very many come through to council since the time that I have been here, but so it is kind of a standalone item.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. So just for clarification for myself, so this has already been in front of council as a flag committee, or we had a previous flag committee that approved this?
The flag request already was approved by council previously, and this today is just separately for the proclamation because they are asking for a signature on the proclamation. So it felt best to come before council.
Thank you. I'll open it up one more time. Questions, comments? This, I was actually going to stop and pick it up at the community center this afternoon, but I got sidetracked. This proclamation was approved previously by council, I'm going to say about 5-6 years ago for Kin Canada Day and the Kin Canada Week. With that being said, I'll open it up to council. If there's any appetite for anybody to sponsor that, council support the Kin Canada with a signed proclamation. Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. I guess just for further clarification, I just want to make sure that this was not something that came in front of this council. It came before 5 years ago. Council 5 years ago, correct?
This particular request for this proclamation for upcoming February 20th, 2024 for Kin Canada Day, the proclamation request, this is the first time it's come before council.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? If not, could I get someone to consider supporting the Kin Canada with a signed proclamation? Deputy Mayor Saylor makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8.2. We have Clayton Varjassy from Community Services Coordinator, or let me say that again, our Community Services Coordinator. He's going to present on the Coaldale 5K Family Fun Run 2024. Clayton, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, so I'm here to present on Coaldale's 5K Family Fun Run, looking for some support from council on this. So the intent of this report is to further inform council and the public at large about the upcoming 13th annual Coaldale 2024 Family Fun Run event, and request that council continue the tradition of supporting the event by paying the registration fee for town council and staff willing to participate. This matter has appeared before council previously, and past council members had approved coverage of the fee for town council and staff participation and t-shirts from town council's budget. So the Coaldale Christian School is pleased to announce that they will be hosting the 13th annual 5K Family Fun Run on Saturday, April 20th, 2024. The fun run is made possible through that of both participation and generous sponsorship. The event organizers' past focus on promoting local businesses will continue. The town of Coaldale has provided support from the very beginning at various levels. In 2017, we became a platinum sponsor at $1,000. And additionally, we have continued to encourage staff participation with the payment of their entry fees. And just for clarification's sake, the $1,000 sponsorship is out of our internal budget. So we're not looking for that as part of this, but looking for the other support. This year, the entry fee is $22 per adult participant and an additional $15 for a t-shirt. Add $2 for larger t-shirts. The stated goals of the Coaldale Family Fun Run are to encourage healthy outdoor activity, enhance family time, and bring cohesiveness to the town of Coaldale. They support local charity by donating $2 from every entry to Rehoboth Christian Ministries, facilitating opportunities for people with disabilities to flourish, as Jesus taught. Proceeds this year will go towards supporting the Southern Alberta Summer Games. So as you're all aware, Coaldale is hosting the Southern Alberta Summer Games this year. And Family Fun Run has generously agreed to donate their proceeds to that event. Volunteer community groups such as this have a very positive impact on the physical and mental health of our community. The town's ongoing commitment is minimal, but very helpful when considering the event's value. Proceeds from this year's Family Fun Run, again, will go towards supporting the 2024 Southern Alberta Summer Games, which is returning to its full form with Coaldale as host after a 4-year hiatus since 2019. The financial impact of this will be would be a little bit of operating staff time, not much, just a little bit of administrative time. In the past, there's been as few as a handful of town council and staff members participate, and as many as 20. Financial impact is projected to be up to $640 if participation fee and t-shirts are paid for. Funds would come from council's other professional services budget. So just for some perspective, last year, 7 staff and 6 members of council participated. And then adding on to that, not paid for as part of this, 9 others joined the town team. So those were like family and friends of the town, but they weren't covered under this. So the total cost of that was $382. And if we projected an increase or added the increase in costs this year, that would be adjusted to $440 if we had the same level of participation. So decision options. Option number 1, that town council approve the following: enter a town of Coaldale team, pay the registration fee of $22 per participant, and direct community services to collect council and staff registrations. Total estimated cost of $400. Option number 2, the town council approve the following: enter a town of Coaldale team, pay the registration fee of $22 per participant, pay the t-shirt fee of $15 per participant, and direct community services to collect council and staff registrations. And then option number 3, I guess, would be at your discretion.
Thank you, Clayton. Any questions, comments for our presenter? We also have the marketing director for the Family Fun Run, Jacob Weeb, in the gallery as well. Pretty straightforward. We've done this a number of years. So again, our options are number 1, that we enter a Coaldale team, we pay the registration, and we direct community services to collect council and staff registrations for a cost up to $400. If we want to include t-shirts, that would be a cost up to $640. So again, option 1 without t-shirts, option 2 with t-shirts, or option 3 that we do not participate in this year's Family Fun Run. Anybody care to sponsor one of those motions? Councillor Avery,
Yes, Mayor, I'll sponsor option 1 without t-shirts.
there's a motion on the floor by Councillor Avery that Town Council approve option 1 to enter a Town of Coaldale team, pay the registration fee of $22 per participant, and direct community services to collect council and staff registrations for a cost up to $400. Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. What shirts did we wear last year? Do we have them made, or did we just use our Summerfest shirts?
The Summer Fun Run, they have their own t-shirt that they come out with every year that the participants get to keep.
Thank you, Mayor. Which one did we use last year? One of theirs or our own?
We use the Family Fun Run t-shirt.
Thank you.
Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. What did we do last year? Did we, that's what my question was too, because I thought they had the t-shirts we picked up.
So just for the sake of clarity, every year the Family Fun Run, they come up with a new logo for their fun run. So we participated last year and every participant got a t-shirt given to them, paid for by the Town of Coaldale for the Coaldale team. And now they're asking if we want to do that again this year. So Council Avery has made a motion that we participate at $22 per participant for a total cost up to $400. And then the questions that you're asking is if we want to purchase their t-shirt that they're going to come out for 2024. Councillor Avery.
That's correct, Mayor, and if a participant wants a shirt, they're $15, it can come out of their pocket for the t-shirt. I think we should get our Summerfest shirts or advertise the summer games as a Coaldale team for this event, because we're only a few months out on that one as well.
Thank you. Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. I like Councillor Avery's idea of wearing our Summerfest shirts, provided we can get them done on time.
Thank you. And the only comment I have on that, it's a great idea, but the Family Fun Run is a fundraiser, and proceeds from the sale of those t-shirts will go towards our summer games. So that was the whole point of them having a fundraiser. Councillor Reese has a follow-up.
Councillor Avery, would you be willing to make a friendly amendment to your motion?
Unfortunately, no. The $22 is straight going to the community, $2 going to Rehoboth, which is a fantastic place to put some money, and then $20 per participant. There's not that much profit on a $15 t-shirt. That'll be going back to the community.
Councillor Reese? Okay. So no more questions, comments? Then I'll call the question on Councillor Avery's motion for option number 1 that we sponsor $22 per participant and direct community services to collect council and staff registrations. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Clayton. Moving on to departmental reports. Agenda item 9.1. We have our municipal clerk, Lana Antony, presenting on the committee of the whole process. We had our first meeting of the whole on January 23rd, and our municipal clerk is just going to speak to that. Lana, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. The purpose of this report was to share a new council initiative introducing committee of the whole and outlining what the process for that might be. A committee of the whole is a meeting is an opportunity for council to hold discussion on any matter, determine process, and receive detailed information and from administration, delegation, or subject matter experts. The format of this meeting is held in a little less formal meeting atmosphere than a regular council meeting. The first committee of the whole meeting was held on January 23rd with council to identify, help shape what this committee of the whole might look like. There was 4 future dates that council had determined moving forward, and they will be held downstairs here in the shift meeting room. They will not be live streamed, but they are welcome, opened and welcomed for the public to attend in person. The meetings will start at 4:30 on the above noted dates in my report. And the agenda includes some very basic items for us, for council to discuss. The minutes for the meetings will include motions, acceptance of the agenda, move into closed session if it is applicable, and then to adjourn the meeting. There is no decisions that will be made during the committee of the whole meeting. It is just an opportunity for council to discuss and items that might be coming down the pipe to be on a future regular council meeting agenda. This is an opportunity as well for staff to compile a report and come prepared at those regular council meetings with any items that council may wish to see have a deeper dive into. At the meeting, it was determined that deadlines to submit topics for the committee of the whole meeting would be 1 week in advance. Again, meetings are open to the public and no pre-registration was required. That was my report. The decision suggestions were for council to provide any further amendments as they see fit or to receive the committee of the whole processes information. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Lana. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, comments on the meeting of the whole format? Does anybody want any amendments done to the process, additions done to the process? We can talk about those today. If not, if you think of something, then you can send out an email and then we can incorporate that. Our CAO has a comment. Go ahead, Kayla.
Thank you, Mayor. The other thing to mention is that this has been branded as a pilot project until the end of June. And so as a result, we're not going to make any formal amendments to the council procedural bylaw because between now and the end of June, based on how this plays out in practice, council may wish to make even further amendments because you want this to work well in practice. And we did our best to create a starting point here in consultation with council, but we deliberately haven't gone through the formal amendment process so that we're not making several different amendments between now and June. But I think a debrief sometime at the end of June would be a good idea to figure out what kind of amendments, if any, council would like to make to what we have here. And then from there, the idea would be to bring back an amendment to the existing council procedural bylaw if this is something council would like to continue on with.
Thank you. And while you got the floor, Kaylin, can you, for our viewers at home, just explain the change to the council meeting format as well?
Certainly, one of the things that we discussed as part of a resource loading analysis is the frequency with which regular council meetings were held and the creation of an opportunity to have an additional monthly opportunity to discuss with council various organizational happenings in the form of a committee of the whole meeting. We found that a lot of communities and Lana's peer group in the municipal clerk world, they have committee of the whole tool, which is something that they utilize and speak highly of as a more informal atmosphere to brainstorm with council at various decision-making junctures of town business, as opposed to simply just waiting for a regular council meeting to discuss a matter for the first time. It allows council to be part of the brainstorming discussion process, to bring in experts before spending a lot of resource formalizing a different business matter. And then the other reason, the other change is that the frequency or intervals of regular council meetings is that they are once every 3 Mondays, as opposed to sometimes once every 2 Mondays is what we had previously, and that change results in 3 less regular council meetings throughout the year, but the addition of 10 additional committee of the whole meetings throughout the year. This is on a trial basis, and we will be having a debrief discussion with council after the end of June to see if this is a schedule council would like to continue on with past that date.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, comments for either our municipal clerk or CAO? Seeing none, then could I get someone to sponsor a motion that council receive the committee of the whole process as information? Councillor Pickering makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 9.2. We have our Director of Operations, Justin MacPherson, presenting on the snow and ice policy review. Justin, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Other chair.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So at the last committee of the whole meeting, Council had some questions about the snow removal policy and some suggestions. So Caitlin and I discussed me bringing this to Council tonight, just as kind of a quick policy overview with a question at the end if Council would like to make any changes to the policy for the future. So our current sanding, snow removal, plowing, following large snow events, the town of Coaldale crew will clear snow with help from a contractor, snow and ice from the major routes. The town provides snow removal to their residents based on a route priority system that is set by council. High priority areas include all routes for emergency vehicles and the schools. Snow removal typically starts at 4 a.m. on priority 1 and 2 routes and will continue out to the day as needed. Snow removal may take place over the space of multiple days depending on the amount and duration of snowfall. There's quite a few scenarios where whether or not the weather's warming up or cooling down that will change that based on the forecast. This instance in particular, we removed as much snow as possible off the drainage routes, particularly because we knew there was a quick melt coming, which is unusual for this time of year, but we have to change those processes pretty quickly. So just to go over the priority snow routes and how they work, the first priority is that's emergency routes for emergency vehicles. So the very first priority is if it's very bad snowfalls, opening up drifts to things like the emergency care center, police station, fire station, and then plowing snow and snow removal along the emergency services routes. So the second priority is your school access. That's just plowing access to schools. Third priority is our industrial roads. Fifth is drainage roads. So those drainage roads are areas where there's limited storm drainage, usually areas that were built in the 40s and 50s that didn't have catch basins built into it in a storm system. We want to remove as much snow before it melts as possible to prevent any overland flooding. Just a quick map of the snow removal routes. One thing I did want to mention is this map is pretty aged. It's using a software that is older and doesn't present well. So one thing our team is going to work on with our infrastructure team is creating a new map with our GIS software that should create a better image to show people. So just to recap the event on January 18th, because it was the one we've had this year. So it's been a pretty mild year for snow removal. So we must use this one as a good example because this was a pretty good snowfall. It lasted a couple days. All 5 priority routes were done in these 2 days, so the team and our contractor were able to move very efficiently and quickly, which was relieving because when you don't do snow removal very often, sometimes you have to knock the rust off. Well, our team was more than prepared and did a great job. So we removed 680 tandem trucks of snow over those 2 days. This was kind of the best picture that was taken to show what that actually equates to of how much snow. And this one event cost about $25,000 in contracted services. And that's not including our staff time or any extra plowing, sanding that was done. So for requests for increased service level, this happens typically every time it snows. We get a lot of phone calls, why don't we do this road? Why don't we do that? And I just thought this would be a good way to present this to council to open up the conversation, because usually in the, spring, their operations will bring a kind of this presentation saying this is the policy that council set. Would council like to make any changes to the policy? So at the January 23rd meeting, one of the comments that was passed on to me that why don't we extend it to 11th and 13th all the way down to the canal. That is something that is already done. It's part of our 5th priority route, so it's just done later in the day or usually the next day or next day. So rest of that street is done along with the priority route of 2, which is the school zones. So it's just in different priorities, but those places are already done. And I just want to put a few statistics. So between snow plowing and snow removal, there's 37 kilometers of roads that's maintained every snowfall. Plowing is quite a bit different than removal, as we know. Plowing is just pushing the snow to the side, usually in an area where there's a ditch. It's really efficient, really quick. Removal is actually physically removing the snow, like the pictures you see. There'll be snow blowers, loaders loading it into truck and actually physically removing the snow from the location. So to break this down, to add an additional snow removal is approximately $1,500 per kilometer. That is about as close as you can get for an average, because that doesn't include different types of snowfall. So what we did is we took a 5-year average of our snowfalls. How much did that cost? Each snowfall cost us in contracted services, and how many kilometers of road we did. And that's the number we came to, and I could stand behind that number, but it doesn't account for our internal staff or any other changes we need to make to scale up the service. So that's just the purely contracted services part of it. And one other thing you have to consider when you're talking about contracted services is how much is that contractor able to provide. We do lay out that contract every 3 years. This summer it will have to be re-tendered. So every 3 years we tender that contract out to provide that equipment and manpower. So my question for council: the snow removal policy will need to be updated this spring and summer to add the roads to the new high school, and there's some also industrial roads that we'll be considering adding as well. Would council like to propose any other changes?
Thank you, Justin. I'll open it up to members of council, Councillor Pickering and then Councillor Beekman.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Through to Justin. I know they do 11th, usually the day after, but what I've noticed is this year especially, a snowstorm came, the contractor came to do it. In Jenny Emery's case, which is on 11th, 50% of them people park on that side street, and the contractor's trucks were going down, turning around, coming back over that stretch, packing the snow down, which was making it really hard for traffic to move. And I just wondered why. That's what was my question bringing that up, was they're there within a half a block just to do that same day instead of coming back the next day. I think it's turned more into a safety issue than a cost issue. Anybody that goes to Jenny Emery, has kids over there, sees this going on more and more, and that is a main side route. So I know they do it, I'm just questioning why they come back the next day and do it instead of just doing it right then it's done. And it isn't going to change the cost of we're doing it anyway. It just would simplify that safety issue for me.
Yeah, through to Councillor Pickering. I think there's a couple reasons why. Cost would be one, but I agree with you if it's doing anyways. We don't always do the priority 5 routes. Like priority 5 routes are usually done when there's a large melt coming. Like for example, this snowfall, it melted quickly after the fact. But I think the main reason is we're trying to move quickly to get the priorities done. While it may seem like it's just a couple extra here and there, and then this is something that council can change. You can change that so it's on priority 2. The priorities are laid out so the priority 1s get done as quickly as possible. Then the priority 2s get done as quickly as possible so that there's less impact to people and safety of things like intersections and schools. So what we're trying to do is, that's why they come in at 4:30 in the morning, is try to get off Main Street before traffic hits Main Street. And then we try to get to the schools and get all the schools clear before school starts. So all the traffic is not landing on it. So, I think we'll take a better look at that area next time to see if that's causing an issue at that end. Because I understand what you're saying. Those trucks turning around would create a pretty big mess. And if it's something we can clean up as we go, it's definitely a good thing to consider. I hope that answers that question.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beekman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Justin. I actually have 2 questions for you. One will probably be more in your wheelhouse. The other one, I don't know, we'll try anyways. So when we're talking about adding route for the new high school, are we going to be just going from 30th to the school, or are we talking from 30th to 845, that entire path in through there?
To Councillor Beekman, we've had preliminary conversations, but that's something council can decide, to be honest with you. I think that would be one of the options we could present to council is, do we want to go all the way through 30th, all the way to 845? I think there's some justification for that, depending on the number of traffic, especially as that subdivision gets built out. I think it's something to consider as a, whether or not that road becomes an actual collector or not. So in the spring, when this comes back to council for an update, I think that could be presented as two different options for that road.
Okay, there's no set plan in place yet for that then? Kind of a
No,
blank
actually,
canvas?
that is a policy of council, so this will be an option for council.
Okay. Okay, second question. On this last snow event, I noticed a lot of violators of snow routes. Do we have anything in place for, have bylaw enforce anything on violators of snow routes? Because it just makes such a mess when they don't move.
Yeah, through to Councilor Beekman, we did notice that as well. Compliance isn't actually that bad in comparison to some other communities I've noted.
Okay.
I'm going to use the city of Lethbridge as an example for this route. Their compliance is actually extremely poor, especially in the neighborhood I live in particularly. But snow routes are difficult because we haven't had to call a snow route for quite a while down here. We've been very fortunate with the lack of snow. Well, depends on which side you see that, but we've been fortunate for snow removal on the lack of snow. So our residents are a little out of practice what a snow route even is. We did send out the messaging pretty early on. Terry and this crews were very prepared on that part. So as it comes to the bylaw, the way the policy is written and in our bylaws, we are allowed to fine, we are allowed to tow. I lean towards more warning. Hey, we can put a warning on their windshield and say, you missed this snow event, please move next time. And then the repeat offenders, I think you would want to excel that through to them. But it was something that Kaylin had brought up with me from the committee as a whole, and it's something we can take a better look at for next time. We've talked to Mark Anderson, who's our manager of the community peace officers, and they're on board to go whichever way works. So
Awesome, thank you.
Further to Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. So following up on the snow, why do we feel the urge to have to move it? Land Lakes Drive, kind of like 6th Avenue in Lethbridge, why can't we just push it up onto the green strips, leave the snow sit there? 23rd Avenue is pretty wide. If you left the snow in the middle, just make sure you can get in and out of the intersections, can still park on the side of the road. I think a lot of that $25,000 is hauling it away, especially knowing we're gonna have a quick melt event like we did with this snowfall.
yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor. It's a great question. It's something that we kind of talk about every year internally. The system, and I believe the reason you're asking that question is Lethbridge has switched the city of Lethbridge has switched their service level to do exactly that, to plow the snow, not remove it. And they still remove it in some critical areas, but they actually expanded their snow plowing program to hit some other areas. Now, this is pretty common in a lot of mountain towns. Like you'll see a lot of towns in Crow's Pass area, a lot of towns in BC, and a lot of northern towns do this because there's almost no option not to. Like we're very fortunate down here that we don't get enough snow, that this is a continuous conversation. So one of the outcomes, and I've noticed this personally in the neighborhoods in Lethbridge, they've decided to plow to the side on all their bus routes. Now this causes quite a bit of chaos, quite a bit of havoc. You have a windrow, not in the middle of the street, like when you remove that windrow, blocks cars and blocks driveways. I know from friends of mine and peers of mine at the city of Lethbridge that the complaint line was the busiest it's ever been. So that is a service level council could consider, and we could come back and say, it's going to cost this. We could increase that plowing. It is much faster. But for the removal, there's one other big benefit of removal. It's stormwater. Our stormwater capacity in some of these neighborhoods is very limited, if non-existent at all. So removal, especially on the drainage streets, is required. Places like Main Street, I think Main Street's probably the best example of why removal is something that's very important. Number one, there's limited space for parking, but on the south side of Main Street where the buildings shade the road and the sidewalk, if you don't remove that, it becomes an icy nightmare, no matter how much sand you want to use. So it's something for council to consider on service levels, whether or not to expand that service throughout town of more plowing. And I look forward to those conversations, so.
Thank you. And speaking to Councillor Avery's suggestion, I think if there's one way to make our ratepayers upset is to change our level of service when it comes to snow removal. So for myself personally, just keep doing what you're doing. I've heard more complaints in the city of Lethbridge, and I've had to go help out a couple of people that got their driveways blocked by the windrow, and then it froze, and then it gets very difficult to remove. So I like just the way you're doing it for myself. Back to Councillor Beekman's comment and question, that he brought up a good point. So with the new school opening, at one of the Palliser meetings, I asked them directly if we can control the route of the school buses when they come and go. And they said they can't do that. They let them scatter. So they're going to find out for themselves, like if they start taking 16th Avenue to get to 845 past the Birds of Prey, that will need to become a snow route then, because obviously that's going to cause some big problems. So I found that quite interesting. That tweaked my memory about what Palliser said about that they're not going to control the direction that the buses go. Councillor Chapman is not with us, but he emailed a couple of questions, comments, and that was regarding the handicap stalls on Main Street, whether or not they were cleaned sufficiently during the last snow event, and also the crosswalks. So that was a question by Councillor Chapman, if you wanted to respond to that.
Whether or not they were cleaned was the question, sorry?
Well, I know they were clean, but were they clean to their normal degree, which I think you have the answer for that.
Yeah, so it's the handicap stalls that was added as a increased service level. I believe last year, early in the year, it was, a little bit of an oversight of how, tight Main Street can be when there's snow on it. So our parks crew is designated to go out, even if the snow removal crew isn't. It's part of the pathway system that the handicap stalls and those crosswalks are done. Whether they not got done quickly enough after the snow removal crew, because there's two parts of snow removal that you have to consider, and Public Works is very much in charge of get as much snow out as possible, as quickly as possible, and sometimes that leaves a little bit of a mess, so you'll see a follow-up crew kind of clean up the small spots, and I drove it right after it was done, and from my eye, it looked pretty good. It was heavily sanded, which we do want, so that layer of ice melts quickly, so I would, if Councillor Chapman wanted to give us some more feedback, he can email the CAO and we can take a look at any troubled areas, because there are troubled areas that do get missed. It is something that commonly happens with snow removal, especially when you're working at 5 o'clock in the morning. So we want to address those though. So
Thank you. And then I have one further question before I open it up to council again. When a snow event is announced, besides our social media posts, the people that have signed up to get emails, does it go out through an email as well, or just on social media?
it doesn't go through an email. We just post on social media for now. What type of email notification? Because that is something that can be possible. I know there's different types of apps. Our app isn't quite capable of that. So our solid waste app, if you're referencing something that the city of Lethbridge does, again, the city of Lethbridge has one singular app for all their services now, solid waste and snow removal. To develop an app like that is pretty extensive. So if you're considering something like that, that's something administration can look into. But an email notification, we can maybe do like an email list. Sign up for an email list, and that email gets blasted out to everybody. That's something that could be done.
Yeah, and the town of Coaldale has that currently for their Coaldale connection, the water bills that get emailed out, if that can be utilized for that as well. So that was just a thought.
I think that's a great idea.
Any other questions, comments for our presenter? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive the snow and ice policy review as information? Deputy Mayor Saylor makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Justin, and sorry to have to say that This will be the last time you'll be presenting to us because we're under the understanding that you're leaving the organization. Friday is going to be your last day and you have a new position coming up with WSP Engineering. So on behalf of council, thank you for all your hard work for the past 6 years and we wish you well in with your future endeavors.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This has been the best experience of my career so far working with you guys. It's, this has been a lot of growth and I'm excited to move on, but I'm going to miss everybody that we work with, including council. It's been truly a pleasure. So
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 9.3, we have our growth and investment and Deputy CAO. Congratulations on that new addition to your title, Cameron. So Cameron Mills is going to be presenting on the 2023 building statistics. Go ahead, Cam, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, Council. It is my pleasure to be in front of you today to speak to our building and development, what I could call a year in review. So what we've had the opportunity to do with Council the last few years is aggregate the statistics from the previous year and take a look at what's happening in town in terms of our permitting process, both with the development permit process that's administered here through my department, and then also taking a look at the building permit information through our, which comes to us from our colleagues at Superior Safety Codes. Provided council with a report. I've also attached a presentation, which I'm going to take the opportunity to go over here with council here today. So first of all, we take a look at our development permit statistics, and I just want to. There's obviously a lot of information up on the slides. What this shows is a table showing all of the information as it relates to development permits within the town, as well as compliance letters. Tells us what happens in any given month, the values associated with. As we've discussed a few times in the past, the values associated with the development permits are not necessarily the most accurate values in the world, but it is something we track for curiosity's sake. Three highlights, and I'm welcome to answer any questions that council has coming out of this information. There are three highlights that stand out to me that I want to focus on. First of all, we can take a look at the bottom right of the main table right down here. That's our total development permit number, and that stands at 173 for the year 2023. That represents approximately a 40% increase over 2022, where we did about 130 or so in 2022. And while a hard and fast number is not a perfect reflection of the workload, some development permits are more work than others. Major industrial development is more work than a shed, for example, as I'm sure council is aware. A 40% increase in permit volumes does create some workflow challenges, and I just want to take this opportunity publicly to provide some kudos to two people in my department in particular, Haley Winder, our senior planner, as well as Kylie Stone, for managing a significant increase in work volume while also maintaining Coaldale's reputation as being an easy place in which to do business. We've continue to hear really positive feedback from members of the investment community who do business across multiple jurisdictions in terms of the speed and ease of our process, as well as the friendliness of our staff. And that's largely has to do with the work those two do for us. So I wanted to make sure we could acknowledge that publicly. Second, another thing that does stand out is the total number of new housing starts. And so we did have 22 new housing starts, 19 of which would have been traditional single-family homes, and 3 of which would have been mobile homes here within the town. So that is probably a lower number than we could expect to see. Again, we've talked about some of our supply constraint challenges, especially with sort of the middle price point bracket within the broader region. However, this does represent a pretty significant increase over the previous year. I believe where we had, I believe 2022 was 13 single-family homes and 17 total dwellings. So again, about a 40 to 50% increase in home values or home numbers. And then total permit values is up 4 times over the previous year. That has to do with one industrial development permit, which was issued in September for an industrial project in the new phase of the industrial park, though that particular value is not necessarily reflective of the total project. But generally speaking, $20 million is approximately what we've done the previous year. We're seeing a slight increase in that value, again, over 2022. So moving on in the report, we start to take a look at our building permit data, and the way we always look at building permit data, and this slide exists every year, so you're going to have seen it before, but I always just provide a refresher, largely for anyone that might be watching the presentation. So there are some differences between building permit data, which is done by Superior Safety Codes in line with the Canadian Building Code, and development permit data. So building permit data, with respect to, say, valuations of permits, is a more accurate reflection. And also, what we like about building permit data is that it's reflective of what's actually occurring. So development permit is issued prior to a project getting underway. A project may or may not actually ever get underway, whereas development permit data is tied to actual construction. So it's a more accurate reflection of what you might see happening. Whenever we take a look at this data, we look at multiple years. We find 3-year averages provides a better snapshot of sort of overall economic health than one individual year might. And we also look at multiple locations. And those multiplications are always, for us, we always look at Blackfalds and Tabor for reasons we've discussed previously as it relates to what our comparative analysis, right? So we like Blackfalds as being in a community similar to Coaldale in the sense that it's a community of just over 10,000 just outside of Red Deer, much like we're a community of approximately 10,000 just outside of Lethbridge. And then we take a look at Tabor, given that they're approximately the same size as Coaldale within the same region. So looking first at Coaldale's building permit data, we provide council with a 3-year snapshot of building permit data. And we take a look at, there's really 3 categories. So industrial and commercial are separate categories within building permit data, but it's difficult to understand how that line is drawn. So generally speaking, when we're doing analysis, we lump industrial and commercial together. Because that line tends to be pretty blurry. So what we see here in terms of construction value is that Coaldale has, first of all, seen steady and significant increases in residential building permit investment. So some of that is, for example, new dwelling construction, but some of that will also measure things like people investing into their existing properties. So people might invest $40,000 into their home, adding solar panels, for example, or doing an addition or a major renovation or something like that. And so this is a nice reflection of the fact that, again, even though we do have some supply concerns with respect to the availability of new lots, something that we anticipate is going to be ending this coming summer, we are seeing people continue to put money into their properties and value those properties in Coaldale, and to the point where we've grown from $9 million of investment in 2021 steadily to $12.5 million in 2023. What's also interesting is that non-residential investment continues to occur at a brisk pace, and this is happening in spite of the fact that, again, this is reflective of a period where those supply issues have started to creep into particularly on the industrial side, as lots have sold out. So we have managed to continue a relatively brisk non-residential investment pace, despite the fact that we have had some challenges in terms of getting new lots online, which obviously is going to be rectified in the coming year with the new industrial park going in. So now we take a look at the 2023 year, looking at Coaldale as it relates to Tabor and Blackfalds. So first, the third category to the right is the institutional category. This is the category that, from an investment as a metric of economic health perspective, we look at the least, because this is something that isn't largely impacted by the work that we do as an organization. However, we do take a look at it just briefly. So we do lead the institutional category in 2023. We actually had 2 institutional permits, both of them relating to the work being undertaken by the Birds of Prey, which falls under the institutional category. So that $1.2 million is reflective of that project. Otherwise, taking a look at the other two categories, commercial and industrial values are approximately in line, interesting between Taber and Coaldale. Taber actually outpaced Coaldale in 2023 by about 2%, but largely we're both looking at that $12 to $12.5 million valuation for those projects, and both of those are more than surpassing Blackfalds at approximately a 2-to-1 ratio. And then looking at the residential value, Coaldale and Blackfalds are approximately equal, both at about $12.5 million of permit value, both outpacing Taber at approximately a 2-to-1 value during that period. And then looking at a 3-year average, and again, the 3-year average is nice because it takes away some of the blips associated with individual major projects that might skew some of the data. What we see here is, again, Coaldale's institutional value is exceptionally high in this case because that would be reflective of the school and rec center permit, which was taken out, I believe, 2 years ago. So disregarding the institutional calculation, what we see that is particularly interesting is that residential investment over this time, even considering that the entire period is within that supply constricted period, shows that Coaldale remains an attractive location for residential investment, outpacing Taber in real terms by over 20%, and actually while coming up somewhat short of Blackfalds in terms of total value on a population adjusted basis, actually surpassing the investment that we're seeing in Blackfalds. The reason that's significant to note is that Blackfalds, over a longer period over the last decade or so, especially for communities our size, is the high watermark in Alberta in terms of residential growth. It's seen very substantial growth over that period. So for us to be in the same conversation as Blackfalds in terms of annual residential investment paints a picture of Coaldale as an attractive location for people to invest in their properties. So that's a positive note. And perhaps most importantly, the data also supports Coaldale's position as being attractive for business investment. So not only at $14 million over this period does Coaldale outpace the other competitors by this metric, but it's also the only one of the 3 communities in which our non-residential investment outpaces our residential investment. So, which is a sign, clearly a sign of a healthy, growing non-residential sector, and something that's been a priority for us over the 5.5 years that I've been a part of the organization, and something that we really enjoy seeing continue. So we can make a number of assumptions from the information, but I think it's important to point out that a statement we made 1 year ago when we were looking at this report for the 2022 period was that we were expecting momentum from 2022 to spill into 2023 and beyond as new industrial and commercial land comes online. And I think we can look back now on that statement and recognize our success in continuing to position Coaldale as a great place to invest and grow business. And we can also know that this is only going to increase a year from now, given that some of the major industrial investment that we know is occurring isn't reflected in these numbers. So the industrial investment numbers for 2024, I can already confidently say are going to be substantial. And so I look forward to delivering that report in a year's time. Likewise, as we've alluded to previously, as an economic development marketing team, we're going to be putting more emphasis on promoting Coaldale as a place to live once we have some new residential new lot supply coming to market, with the goal of starting to see continued increases in residential growth over the period of the next few years. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Cameron. This report happens to be one of my favorites. It's always good to see how well Coaldale is doing. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions for our presenter? Excellent. So again, congratulations on your new appointment as Deputy CAO.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
With that being said, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive the 2023 Building Statistics Report as information? Councillor Avery makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thanks, Cam. Moving on to information items, 12.1. As part of your agenda package, there was a terms of reference submitted for the Mayors and Reeves Committee that I sit on. This is something that I've been trying to get in place since the beginning of my term, And Councillor Reeve, Tory Campbell, took side that this needed to be done as well, so he brought it forth to the Mayors and Reeves meeting. I'm going to say about 6 weeks ago, and now we got some movement on that. So they sent out a draft copy, and hopefully everybody had a time to look through that. And it's just as information, but there's only one comment that I would like to make on that to see if there's any appetite. Like currently, it's the first Friday of every month is the meeting. And sometimes I have conflicts, and I've asked our deputy mayor to go at the time. And if the deputy mayor wasn't available, I would ask a former member or a former deputy mayor to go in my absence. But that won't be allowed in the new terms of reference. So either the mayor goes or nobody goes. So my ask is if I should bring forward, if they would consider allowing the deputy mayor to go if the mayor is not available. So I'll make that recommendation. We have Councillor Chapman that goes to the meetings, but he's wearing a different hat. He's not representing the town of Coaldale. He's representing the Highway 3 Twinning Association. So I would like to keep him at arm's length when it comes to having a council representative there. So, okay, I'll do that. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, then could I get someone to make a motion that council receive the following proposed amendment that I just mentioned about allowing the deputy mayor amendment to the Mayors and Reeves terms of reference? Anybody? Councillor Beekman makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So that concludes the open portion of the meeting. I'll require a motion to go into closed session in accordance with section 197-4-B of the Municipal Government Act to discuss matters exempt from disclosure for items 13.1, subject to section 16, business interests of a third party, and section 17, personal privacy. Could I get someone to make that motion, please? Councillor Pickering at 6:22 p.m. Thank you. We'll take a 10-minute break.